Hey guys, welcome back to another video on the Inside Special. Happy Sunday afternoon to you all. Hope you're all okay. Hope you're right. Hope you all had a great week. Obviously, I've not been around, so apologies for that. But in this video, we are talking about finally the end to the Morgan Gibbs-White debacle of a saga. We're going to be talking a little bit about Heung-Min and potentially moving to the MLS. We're talking about Mainoo and Garnacho interest. We're going to be talking about really where Spurs go from here when it comes to the summer transfer market and what has been of it. Okay, we're talking about that. To be honest, we're going to talk about Johan Vissa. There's lots to talk about and sort of round up in this video. So kick back, grab yourself a summer fruit squash, enjoy yourself, because we'll always try to find the positives and all the negatives. As you know, we'll always try and be glass half full, but let's talk about it. And afternoon, Sonia, Mick, Spurs, Steve, Janice, Adventurous. How are we all? Hope we're all okay. But let's jump in and talk about Morgan Gibbs-White, because obviously Morgan Gibbs-White yesterday has signed a new contract with Nottingham Forest. Happened late last night. In what I can only describe as forced is the one word I would sum this up as. Watching the interview he has with Marinakis standing next to him, like it's like there's a gun behind the camera pointing towards him. Mr. Marinakis, Mr. Marinakis, Mr. Marinakis. It feels very, very off. But regardless, the deal is off now. He signs a new deal. We'll see any of the fallout from this. Obviously, I know Nottingham Forest were potentially sort of threatening legal action. Let's see if there's anything on the Spurs end for that. Let's sort of see. But look, the debacle's over, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. We know for a long period of time, Spurs have been involved in big money moves, and they've not come to fruition. Let's just go back to January. That's just been in Mark Gray, deadline day offer of 70 odd million or whatever it was for Mark Gay, and everyone just went, where's that come from? Including Mark Gray, Crystal Palace, and people to do with Spurs. Everyone's like, where's that come from? So it hasn't come through. I said when it came to Kudus that would be our marquee signing of the summer, and I was shocked when we agreed another deal for another marquee move. Let's see if, obviously, glass half full. We'll try and sign another marquee name, but past experience will tell you, no, it's one marquee name and that's that. I think this situation now finishing itself. Afternoon, Paul Simon, Roberto Martins, Sofian, Faz, Eddies, Naima. Excuse me, something stuck in my throat there. Moving on from it now, let's kind of actually discuss what happens next. What happens next? And we're July 27th. Market having been open now for, let's call it 6-7 weeks, having signed 2 players. They'll tell you 3 due to Vuskovic, but 2 players, one of which we haven't seen yet. The other one we have, obviously, in Kudus. The big thing for me is Daniel said he wanted to win the Premier League and he wanted to win the Champions League, and actions will always speak louder than words. This summer is a summer where I can sit here and say there is no real excuse for not going for it, because Man United, who finished 1 place ahead of you in the league, so, an extra few million, riddled with debt, turmoil in the boardroom, have still gone and spent 70 million on Mbuemo and 60 odd million on Cunha. They've not got any European football next year. It's 130 million. Okay. So off the bat, that's a problem. Spurs have spent about 60 into Kai and Kudus. Okay. So already off the bat, not great. Now, the key thing to remember is obviously a new manager. That takes time for him to see who he wants to get rid of. I get that. I'm still going to harp back to that. Okay. You look at, who's a good one to say? Newcastle are struggling because of Isaac, and they've only really signed Elanga. You look at Villa are doing nothing. So these are 2 teams in and around that sort of top 6 area that Villa have done nothing due to PSR. That's what we believe. But, also Newcastle lost out on Ekitike. They've lost out on Trafford. They've lost out on quite a few names. And then they might be selling Isaac. So that's something you got to hold on to. That's another team that are struggling with the market at the moment. I was laughing a couple of days ago. I was like, they're having a much worse window than we are. That gap closed considerably last night. But then you sort of look at the other three in the top four. City spending like crazy. They're signing James Trafford back. Obviously, I know they're moving on from Edison, Ortega potentially, but Edison and Trafford, signed Reinders. They signed Marmoush in January, which is a big move for them. They're signing all sorts, right? Obviously, Nori as well. That's a big one. When you look at Liverpool spending crazy, Ekitike, Wirtz, Kirkes, Frimpong, they might be signing Isaac as well. There's that you got to hold on to. When you look at Chelsea are spending crazy. Crazy. I mean, they're signing Xavi Simons and Jarell Hato. The amount of people in this community that have said, I want Hato or I want Simons, and they're both going to Chelsea, and Chelsea have signed other players this summer. It's kind of crazy what's happening with them. And then you look at Arsenal, obviously signing Zubamendi. They've signed Norgard. They've signed Gyökeres. They're moving for Eze. I mean, let's talk about Eze for a second. We know his release clause. Everyone in world football knows his release clause. Everyone in world football knows what a player he is. And Arsenal are the ones progressing on him. That's another one that's in and around that sort of style of player that Spurs are sort of liking and wanting. And looks like he's on his way to Arsenal at this rate. Now, things can change, obviously. So there you go. So if you want to win the Premier League and you want to win the Champions League, you really now need to go, right, Liverpool spending potentially 400 or 500 million. We're not going to do that. And I would expect us not to do that as well. And I don't have an issue of not doing that. Arsenal have spent 65 on Gyökeres, 65 on Zubamendi. They've signed Kepa. They've signed Norgard. They're up over 150 mil easy already this summer. They won't be finished. They'll be spending probably another 60, 70, 80 million this summer. Mosquera, actually, they've signed Mosquera, haven't they? They've signed Mosquera. He's another sort of 15 million. We're talking about them probably about being about 170, I'd say, right now. Chelsea signing Jamie Gittins. They're obviously looking to sign Simons and Hato. They've signed other players, obviously. I'm not going to go through it all. Delap being another one of those. They'll end up spending 250 easy. Arsenal spend about 250. Liverpool spend about 400-500. City spending 250 plus. We have to be at 250. That's where we have to be. And right now, that's an extra 200 million pounds. Right? So that's how far away we are from that kind of spend, okay? Now, Spurs can spend that. I don't want to hear Spurs owe money to other clubs on transfers. Every team does. Do you think Chelsea don't? Do you think Chelsea don't owe money? Bear in mind, we're 8th, they're 9th on the revenue list. Spurs turn over more money than Chelsea, right? Just didn't know if you knew that. We turn over more money than Chelsea. Man United are riddled with debt, turmoil in the boardroom, owe crazy amounts of money on transfers. I still think they owe money on Sancho to Dortmund, right? They've spent 130 odd million already, and they're going to be able to spend more. They'll move off of players and spend more. Rashford obviously just moving off to Barca. Barca have taken on all of his wages. So therefore, you've got to think that's 320, 350 grand a week off the books like that. That's huge for them. Okay. Yes, I know they'd rather sell him and make some money, but regardless, that's mad. They're going to look to get rid of Sancho. They're going to look to get rid of Garnacho, who we're going to talk about in a minute. Other players in that squad they're looking to get rid of. So these teams are all spending, okay? When we talk about the other sort of top five, we being obviously in that top six, let's talk about the other top five, they're all spending. And they're trying to do their best. Now, every one of those teams has a manager continuing on from last season. So obviously, that plays a part. Had Ange stayed, Spurs would have been a lot more active because there wouldn't have been a change. We would know who's going to leave. We'd know what we're looking to add in right now. But obviously, a change of style of manager, change of system, all that playing a part. Obviously that takes some time. And that's the key thing, moving off of Ange, obviously it takes time when it comes to the new manager bringing players in. And this isn't a conversation about Ange. If you want to have a conversation about Ange, by all means, please leave because I'm not really interested in hearing. So I've missed a few of you. Ed, Darren, Philip, afternoon all. Hodgod. And you're thinking, who's Hodgod? You know who Hodgod is, all right? Glenn Hoddle. If that was Glenn Hoddle, by the way, that'd be hilarious. But look, good afternoon. If I have missed you, apologies if I have. Let's sort of try to be glass half full now. Okay, so I've been a bit negative about look at all these teams and what they're spending. Let's be glass half full. Where do Spurs go next? Now, Spurs have money to spend. We know that Spurs now have an extra 60 million to spend, right? Because they've not signed Gibbs-White. So we know there's 60 million right there to spend on one player, okay? We know that. That's categorically there, okay? So, glass half full. Where do Spurs go? It looks like Simmons isn't going to happen. He looks like he's pretty much done with his move towards Chelsea. Spurs, I don't think are going striker route. I want to talk about Vissa in a second, by the way, but I don't think Spurs are going to go the striker route. Obviously, Spurs still need to add. Spurs need to get rid of players as well. Like, we're going to come to that as well. Spurs still need to get rid of players, and I kind of would have hoped by now Frank would have known what players to kind of get rid of. He's been training them for a few weeks now. I thought he would know at least one or two where he kind of goes that they're not going to be here long term. I'm not interested in them. And start sort of moving off of players sporadically. But, maybe he's undecided and maybe people are blown away that he thought he was going to get rid of. Obviously, yesterday was 3 hours of Spurs football that I think all of us wish we never watched because it was awful. It was awful football. Wickham and Luton Town. I was, how do you say, I would rather watch paint dry on a wall. Yeah, it was a painful watch yesterday. It was a painful watch. Few of those youngsters, by the way, look pretty good. So I'm leaving here with something. But where do Spurs go next? Now, we've been linked to a few attacking players before. Eze was one of them. I don't see that happening. We'll end up with someone who's cost about 25 million. And then obviously you'll get hit with a few media spins and things like that. But James McAtee is someone that we've been linked to. Now, I really like James McAtee, and I won't stand for anyone going, doesn't show any ambition, does it? Like, he's a very, very talented player. Very talented player. And I really, really like James McAtee. Value-wise, not expensive at all. He just needs regular football. And he isn't really going to get that at City. But I think he is a proper player. I think he will develop into a very, very talented player and an England international. I really do believe that, by the way. Obviously, we've been linked to Kobe Mainoo. I'm going to talk about him in just a second. But in reality, Harvey Elliott, there's another one we're linked to. Again, Harvey Elliott is probably the same level of player as a James McAtee. I don't actually know. Let me just, how old is Harvey Elliott? Bear with me. Harvey Elliott. Let's have a look. He's 22. Okay. He turned 22 in April. Fair enough. I like Harvey. I think, do you know what it is? Spurs fans have gone from Morgan Gibbs-White and sort of play and like Simmons links to McAtee and Elliott, and they think, well, they're crap. That's crap. They're crap. They're really not bad players at all. They're not. Thing is, Elliott's not going to get the football he would want to develop seriously at Liverpool. He's not, because, well, look, 120 million on Florian Wirtz. He's starting week in, week out. You look at James McAtee, they've got Doku, Savio, Marmoush, Bernardo Silva, Foden, Grealish. These are all players probably ahead of him in the pecking order. He's not going to play regular football. I think out of the two of those guys, you should get cheap deals on them. I just don't see how there's a value for either of them when they don't play week in, week out, right? So they're all tier 2 players, or at least their current reputation. Yeah, look, I get why they're valued as sort of tier 2 players, but people valued Cole Palmer as a bit of a tier 2 player, and he turned out to be a pretty decent footballer. So sometimes it's about just giving these guys an opportunity, and I think they would. I mean, you got to think. We have Benton Core sick yesterday. We have Doggy pull up in the warm up, and Solanke felt a knock. 3 players injured, basically, or ill yesterday. If you can withstand an all right amount of football, you're going to play a lot of Spurs because we just seem to have the most injury prone players in the world. And by the way, I love it that, obviously past managers get that blame, don't they? But I think there's that. We won't get Phil Foden. Elliot walks into our team as the new number 10. James Maddison would like a word with you, Roberto. You would take Elliot. Oscar Bob is a player that I like as well, Ed. I do actually really, really like Oscar Bob. And he was one that I talked about earlier on this summer about how I would love to get Oscar Bob. We'll see. We'll see. I think of all the youngsters coming through right now, he's probably one of the best ones, isn't he, Oscar Bob? But obviously, I know last season picked up that big injury, but he's a player. I really rate him already. He's only going to get much better, in my opinion. You'd love to bring in 4 or 5 players going to the first team. Again, let's pause there. Going to the first team squad. We need to get out of this mindset of if they don't improve the first team, they're this, they're that, they're rubbish. As we all know at Spurs, we pick up 12 injuries all at once. So having a good first team squad is going to keep players fitter. I've been on it. I say, I love Mickey Van der Ven and I love Romero, but they are part of a rotation at centre-back with Danso, with Vuskovic potentially, with Dragic, whoever. You need to have rotation, right? Because the idea that you think, and this, by the way, this is a general you, not a directed you, you've got to think these players can't play 3 times a week. They can't. It's just physically impossible for these players to play 3 times a week. Unless their name's Pedro Porro. He's the only one that can sit there and say, I'll play 3 times a week. I'm the only one that can. Everyone else, Kulusevski, I thought was going to be one of those. No, Kulu can't. Bentancur can't. Johnson, he picks up a few niggles. He's probably the only one that could get close to saying he might be able to. Solanke gets injured and he's pretty durable. So with that being said, even Vicario gets injured. So that being said, you need players all throughout that squad that can play. So there you go. Morgan Gibbs-White deal was never on anyway. Well, we agreed a deal. We booked a medical. It was on. Let's just, come on. We should be done with trying to improve unknowns, try and get already made. Yeah, but some of these guys have had Premier League experience. It's not like we're buying Bergvals and Vuskovics and we're praying they're going to turn out great. These are guys that have already shown they can do it in the Premier League. Oscar Bob has shown they can do it in the Premier League. Spurs are shopping the last few days of window. So are we leaning to my point of needing a 60-player roster? Well, we'd be Chelsea. Spurs are putting the eggs in one basket for £6 million player. If it happens, great. If not, they'll get a bunch of youngsters to Google. No, look, in all seriousness, Bayern are signing Luis Diaz. That's going to free them up to sign Isaac, isn't it? Yeah, they're signing Isaac. They're so signing Isaac. The rich get richer in the Premier League. And if I'm Thomas Frank, I'm looking at Johan Lang going, mate, can you do some work? Because it's now August pretty much, and we've signed 1 player. And that was always my concern. If we're in the middle, if we're in August and we've signed 1 player, and Takai, yes, that's a second player, but one ready to go, we know what they're about player, then we've failed this window already. Can it be turned around? Absolutely. Anyone that thinks it can't be is bonkers. But so far, Johan Lang last summer really didn't help Ange go about, being ready for another season, did he? Johan Lang already this summer Not been great. He's not been great. He can turn it around, absolutely, but he's not been great. And look, Pratici is severely overrated, like crazy overrated. But Lang's going to have to pull his finger out here, and he's going to have to pull a summer transfer window out of the fire, because right now, a building is currently on fire called Spurs' transfer window. He needs to be able to pull it out. Because right now, this window is awful. We've sold who? Josh Keeley. We've loaned out what? One player like an Ajayi. Pierre Højbjerg has been sold, obviously, but I'm not going to give him Tell, and I'm not going to give him Danso in terms of players that he's signed. And I'm not giving him Vuskovic either. So he's signed Takai, and he's signed Kudus. And it's August. So, Johan, might start needing to work, 7-day weeks to pull your performance up a level again, because right now, it's not good enough, mate. This so far has not been good enough. You can turn it around, absolutely. Anyone thinks it can't be turned around, you are wallowing in self-pity. But evidence right now is not great. But I have faith. I'm going to try and be positive. I have faith that you can turn it around, Johan, because if I did this at my job, I'd be sacked. So, just saying. There's a chance we can turn it around this window, but realistically, with our track record, it's very small. There's no players that can replace Morgan Gibbs-White except from Eze. What about the kid from Club Bruges? Look, let's talking about some other names. Where am I? Kobe Mainoo. So this was about 3 days ago that TBR Football saying that Spurs are closely monitoring Kobe Mainoo. The midfielder is yet to agree on a long-term extension, but there was chat that he wanted like 180 grand a week or something like that. United are willing to sell him, supposedly, as well. But also, supposedly, Mainoo is kind of keen on Spurs. So I'm just seeing people quote Spurs interested in Harvey Elliott for 50 million euros. If Harvey Elliott's worth 20-25 million max, he's not worth 45 million. Please settle down. English tax included, 20-25 million. Joe Gomez, 30 million euros. This is when you know you should stop looking at people on Twitter because they haven't got a Scooby. But yes, he is kind of key. Now, I like Kobe Mainoo. I do. What is the price on that deal going to look like? He's got 2 years left on his contract. What does that price look like? So you throw in English tax, which is about 15 million. Okay. I think if it's about 50, that's probably about right. Obviously, it might be a tad bit more. I'm not saying if it was like 55, that's a bad deal, but that could be about right. Well, Bentancur still hasn't signed a contract. This is the other thing. Bentancur and Basuma still haven't signed deals, and what are we doing with those two? Get them signed a new deal, sell them. There should be no in between now. Frank, do you want them long term? Yes. Right. We need to try and get them to sign a deal. If you do not, they are being sold. I think what will be telling is if any players are left behind for tour. And somehow Sergio Reguilon's still somewhere in the football club hiding. Mainly better than Bervo, Madison or Sarr or Bentancur. Different player to a Madison, in my opinion. Could offer you rotation in that midfield. I think arguably not as good as any of those. I think Bentancur might be getting sold. It's kind of my shout there. With creativity that Mainoo. If Richie's worth 60 million, then Harvey is worth 50 million in our bad spending club. Man United won't sell Mainoo for less than 50. Elliot Data is off charts. He's a very good player. Don't see Mainoo going for under 70 million, honestly. He'll sign a new deal at Man United. Sell Biss and keep Bentancur. 40 million for Elliot and 50 million for Mainoo. It's going to be the ballpark. Reguilon's still there. He's hiding in like a storage cupboard. What happens on But let's not jump conversations, everyone. Let's stay in the Kobe Mainoo area. We'll come to Son in a minute. We've got lots to talk about. I like Kobe Mainoo. I think he's a very good talent. I don't know if Amorim is a big fan of him. It's one of those with him. It's really how Amorim views him. Man United probably would want to sell him because he's obviously FFP, PSR, whatever you want to call it. Anything they sell him for is 100%. So if they're selling 40 million, it's 40 million. If they're selling 50, it's 50, 60, 60. You get the idea. Do we just go for Wharton now? We're not getting Wharton. I've already talked about Wharton. He's staying at Crystal Palace. It's a difficult one, really. We don't have any creativity until Madders and Kulu are back in the centre mid spots. Palace know we have 60 mil up front. Just bite the bullet on Wharton and use Biss or Bentacle. Again, Wharton wants to stay at Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace are wanting him to stay. Why would top quality players leave their clubs to join Spurs? Because you're European champions, you've got Champions League football. Oh, we finished 17th. Can you show me the last 10 years of where Spurs have finished? Look at the majority, look at one season, and also won a European title. Probably a good reason why. When will Brian Hill be free to go? This is a war crime. Jesus Christ. How about a cheeky bid for Paqueta? Well, he got himself cleared of his betting allegations. I don't think he was ever actually booked for it, if you know what I mean. Irony, I've just said that. But no, I'm not on for Paqueta. Also, West Ham are not dealing with us again. We've always just signed Kudus. They hate us. They genuinely hate us for that. They're not selling us him as well. Let's be honest, the chance winner's mess. Honestly, Andy, Champions League does not make up for Levy. We'll end up with could be players. Don't think Mainoo looks are true. Well, each their own on that one. A cheeky bid. How much is a cheeky bid, Lynch? I want to know what you view your cheeky bid for Paqueta is. Because we've sort of seen what a figure looks like for Paqueta. I want to know what you think a cheeky bid is as well. I really thought by now we'd have had a few players in by now. Well, we do. We have Tell and Danso and Takai, you know. We're good. Look at that. Anyway, moving on. So there's that on Mainoo. In terms of Garnacho, which feels a little bit more likely out of the two, Sky Sports literally a couple of days ago saying that Garnacho wants to stay in the Premier League and play in the Champions League next season with Man United looking to sell. He wants to join either Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea, Manchester City, Newcastle or Arsenal, obviously, for that reason alone. He's got interest from Aston Villa. All that stuff being said, the one thing I find interesting now in the next couple of days is damage control. That's what's going to come out. That's going to come out, obviously, from the club is damage control. You're only as good as your last season, and apart from Europa, what other European trophies Spurs won in the last 30 years? What European trophies have Arsenal won in the last 30 years? What European trophies have Newcastle won in the last 30 years? See how that works? See how that sort of sounds a bit foolish? Don't care as a City fan. Hey, why is Erling Haaland here? Get out. Any update on Divine to Millwall? I don't know. I don't really know, really. It does feel make or break for Alfie this summer. You know, is he staying? Is he going? I feel like it may be last year's saloon in terms of he was going out on loan, but if it wasn't if it wasn't develop into being, you know, first team footballer at Spurs or first team squad player, sorry, may I say, then I think he's gone. Do you think we'll have a player signed before Arsenal game? No, I don't. I really, really don't. I actually am. Do you know what's great? I'm working that day. I can't actually watch the game. And I'm buzzing for that. After what I saw yesterday, buzzing. I'm buzzing not to watch that game. Emotional damage. You want to keep Donnelly. Well, let's see on Jamie. I think Jamie's going to have a lot of interest in the Championship as well. Arsenal like a double amputee. They have no legs to stand on when it comes to European Cups. Damage goes at Lily White House. Liverpool born, mate, not North London. Where'd you get that from? What? I don't know where you got that from, to be honest. I didn't ever mention Liverpool or North London. I find Garnacho so frustrating to watch. Enough players, I pull my hair out already. Look, I think there's all the ability in the world in Garnacho. There's all the ability in the world in Garnacho. Do you know what? It will come down to cost. By the way, the amount of people that go, he's got attitude issues, but then no one mentions Douglas Luiz's attitude issues this summer, which is hilarious, by the way. One agenda fitting the other, isn't it? You know, may not happening. Yeah, Amarim saying that doesn't mean anything to me, mate. Man United value money over players. Turn down to start in Jan. Not a fan. Actually, would prefer Grealish. Watching Johnson try and play on the left yesterday makes me open to almost any alternative. Yeah, not digging out Johnson. Money likely. Anyway, that's on sort of Garnacho flavored news. Moving on though, Johan Vissa. So Vissa is now holding out for Newcastle. So Spurs seem to have sort of drifted away in this deal, even though last week we were still in talks and active. We've now drifted away. It's weird. Brentford told Newcastle yesterday to pay 50 million or walk away, which is probably why Spurs have walked away. Apparently, Vissa was informed last year he could leave for 26 million. And believes Brentford have now broken that verbal pact. Newcastle have already bid higher. I think it's like 35 million they've sort of bid. Neom SC have already made an approach, but Vissa wants Newcastle or any other team with Champions League football. I don't know what's going on there. That looks like an absolute crapshoot of a situation. Yeah, no idea what's going on with that situation. Let's sort of see. But I think Spurs have drifted away from the whole Vissa move. It doesn't shock me when they quoted 50 million. I never saw Spurs being involved in that because he's 29. You know what I mean? It's like, why would we spend 50 million on a guy who's going to give you about 3 years, 17 million a year? Call it. There's no point. You should be able to get better value elsewhere for younger. So, and again, I like Vissa. If Vissa was around that 25, 30, 35, I'd be wanting to be in there. But you know what I mean? We value P&L over players. Drift away from buying players. We have. Vissa price goes up. I think Vissa's to do with Mbuemo more than Isaac because of selling for a player for 70 million when Brentford's FFP situation was already pretty solid. Means they don't need to sell. It's kind of unfortunate if that's the case, but game's game. We go from being happy to having a meltdown quicker than the weather. Well, there's that. Moving on from that as well, let's talk Heung-Min Son flavoured news, which I just had, but I got rid of it. Hang on, bear with me. Yeah, the Athletic said a few days ago that LAFC in the MLS are pushing hard to sign Heung-Min Son in the summer transfer window. Again, that one we'll see on. Spurs are going to want some good money for him. The MLS don't really normally spend big money on transfer moves. They spend big money on wages. See Suarez, Messi, Alba, Busquets, Beckham, Royce, Ibrahimovic. They don't normally spend big money on the transfer move side of things. So I don't know how that's going to work. So I don't see Spurs going, yeah, you can have him for 10 million or you can have him for 15 million. I think Spurs are looking at it going, he's our captain. Marketing is always a really big thing of this with every player as well. This isn't a South Korea Son situation. Trust me, English footballers, do you realize why it's an English tax? It's not just because they need to meet squad demands. It's also English players and their marketability. See Marcus Rashford, who he had a good few months with Villa, wasn't good for years before, still gets Barcelona interest. It's marketability. He's not going to start ahead of Rafinha or Yamal or Lewandowski, so it is a marketability move, in my opinion, as well as a bit of a player move. But It's that. Um, Spurs going to want good money for him. I mean, on last season, let's have a look at his stats for last year because I know people go, he's the world's worst player. Let's have a look at his last season. Where is it? Here it is. So on the 24-25 season, across all competitions, 46 games played, 11 goals, 12 assists. So that's a goal or assist goal contribution every other game. Christ, everyone keeps telling me he's finished in crap. I mean, 17 goal contributions in the Premier League last season in 30 games. That's pretty solid. His worst performances came in the EFL Cup. He had one goal in 4 games. But in the Premier League, 17 goal contributions in 30 games. Christ. If that's finished, then the Premier League's finished as a whole. But look, in any case, as much as me mocking people for their ridiculous Son takes, it feels like it could be time. But the MLS, I don't think are going to offer money Spurs would want for Sonny. And I don't think they're asking for 50 million. I think they're probably asking for about 25, 30. And I don't know if the MLS is going to want to do that unless it comes from like their commissioner, if they have one. I don't know. I don't really watch the MLS. I don't really care about it. They did it for They did it for Messi, where all the teams worked together to make it financially feasible and all that stuff that comes with it. Sonny's just as marketable in that other side of the world, so that's why they'd like it. But yeah, we'll sort of see. Remember our next captain, Madders vice captain. Yeah, I'm buzzing to see Madders back. By the way, like I'm actually buzzing to see Madders back. I think he's gonna be fan. I think he's gonna have another great year. He was good last year. He was good year before. I think he's gonna have another good year this year. Any ideas of the mystery Brighton player we're linked with? Yeah, that's an interesting one. I want to come back to that. With the Brighton situation, you think Baleba, Van Hecker. You've mentioned Buonanotte. People talk about Minter, but Minter makes no sense when you've just signed Kudus. They're very similar players. We should have won yesterday against Luton if Kudus had his finishing boots on because he missed an absolute hooner. Or square it to Jono, who would have scored it, but there's also that. But on that, yeah, I don't see us going for there. I think Baleba and Van Hecker make the most sense. I don't know if Spurs are going to spend the money necessary on a Van Hecker with the Vuskovic emergence, with Danso, with Mickey, with Kuti, with Dragusin coming back in a few months. Van Hecker, I think, is going to be 60 to 70 million. Brighton always overcharge on their best players, as anyone should. It's not shocking. I don't see Spurs spending that kind of money on a player. Mark Gay, obviously very good player as well. They're both good players. Well, I'm not digging out Van Hecker for being a bad player, but obviously Mark has English nationality, and that 15 million, that plays a part into squad building and things like that. That plays a massive part. I don't know if Van Hecker do it. With Baleba, you're talking about a team that they've sold Moises Caicedo, 2 years ago for about 115 million? Something like that, wasn't it? Baleba's going into something of that realm as well. Spurs aren't spending 100 million on a player. That's not what we do. So I think Spurs want these players. I don't think Spurs are going for those players. I don't know who else in that squad it would be because it's not going to be a keeper. Estupinian has just moved to Milan and he was never going to be a player that we were going to go for. Won't be Mats Vissa, won't be Ayari. It won't be O'Reilly either. Minter, like I said, it won't be him. It won't be Gruder. It won't be Matoma. Ruter is the Pedro replacement from a year ago. Won't be Welbeck. Ferguson's moved on. Yeah, I think it's obvious it'll be Baleba or Van Hecker situation right now. So I don't think so. Yeah. Let's have a look. I'm not gassing up our players, but I think Thompson could be our Eze. Well, I wouldn't say no in terms of I don't want him to be, but we'll see how he goes. I hope Forest get a regular next season. Son is a much better finisher than Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson is just decent. I mean, top goal scorer last year for us. It's not bad. Son is washed. Then so is 99.9% of the Premier League, which cashing in Son. Sonny at 20 mil euro according to Transfer Market. Yeah, it'll end up being more than that, in my opinion. I think so. If someone wants to move, I don't think the money's going to be an issue. Spurs should let him make the move. Yeah, but Spurs aren't going to do the MLS a favour, mate. Spurs aren't going to go, hey, you can have him 5 million because we want to help Son. At the end of the day, we are also a business. Spurs are still going to want an actual fee for Son. Like I said, 17 goal contributions in the Premier League last season in 30 games. That's not bad. So Spurs are going to want actual money for him. I know he's 33, so I'm not sitting here saying Spurs can demand 40, 50, 60 million, but I think Spurs should demand 25 with everything that goes into it. Left back. Does Andy want a left back? Don't you freaking start. I saw Ben Davies playing left back in this preseason and I'm panicking. I'm absolutely panicking because Desi Udogie already got injured. And I'm having to watch Ben Davies and Jamie Donnelly play left back. Oh my God, please, for the love of everything that's holy, sign a left back. Who do we go for now? Well, I want to talk about that. Let's get a bit more interactive in a second. Morning, let us know. No, not. Isaac's always been out of the question. Ferguson made a good start for Roma. Well, Gasparini's in charge there now, so he might do quite well. I mean, this Retegui did very well for Atalanta under Gasparini, so there's no reason why Ferguson couldn't. Near striker, left wing, and a 10 desperately. Robinson, that's why I said Robinson. Ben Davies will outlast Thomas Frank. I think Ben Davies might still be playing Spurs at the age of 75. I genuinely think I'll be dead before Ben Davies is finished playing for Spurs. Like, so someone has just sent me something about Newcastle. I just want to quickly check it. I know I shouldn't, but it looks quite funny. Oh, it's just Jamie Vardy's been linked to Newcastle. But look, let's talk about what's next. I think seeing how Spurs have acted this summer, you would expect them to. I don't know if the Morgan Gibbs-White alternative will be the next position Spurs sought, because I think Spurs were very much banking on Gibbs-White to get done. Now, Gibbs-White should not have stopped any other transfer activity elsewhere, any other discussions, things like that. So you're hoping for a left-back situation to be upgraded. You're hoping for sales to happen. Like, Thomas, I know you want to see about these players, mate, but a bit of efficiency doesn't hurt to know that certain players won't play for Spurs. Let's not have Manor Solomon potentially turn into a Sergio Reguilon situation. Cash in, get your money, move on. Right? I don't foresee Solomon having a better career than Matisse Tell or Wilson Odobert. Just cash in, move on. You know, it's one less thing to think about. I just assumed that was such an easy transfer to sort, yet we're still waiting to see when he got injured. He's injured already back at Spurs. Just cash in, move on. I just purely do not get the fascination of continuing to hold on to players that have some value, not a lot, that aren't great, that you can cash in and make a bit of money. The fascination surrounding, we must hold on to our players. It's like Gollum with his precious. Like, lads, cash in. Other big teams move off of players. We are hoarders. We love hoarding players. Like Chelsea hoard players, but they're youngsters with such a massive upside. We hoard average Premier League players, and we love it. And I do not get it. I do not get it. So I think Spurs will be looking at other positions to add into. Look, there's chat around Paulinho, but Spurs want to get a loan deal on there. You know, nothing like bargain basement hunting there. I'm really not happy about the Paulinho move, but if Thomas Frank wants him, then so do I. Douglas Luiz, if Thomas Frank wants him, fine. I don't rate Douglas Luiz right now either. There's an attitude concern around him as well, which, you know, people said there's attitude concerns surrounding Garnacho, surrounding, I mean, the amount of people that still talk about Romero having an attitude problem. It's like, shut the hell up, you absolute weirdos. Like, if you think Romero has an attitude issue, please go have a look at what Douglas Luiz is doing at the moment, because that's a problem. He's a problem at Juventus, and not a good problem. I don't want that. None of our players are even that remotely bad. Even on their worst days, they're not that bad. So, no, I don't want him. I don't think either of them are that good either right now. I still think we should be aiming for more out of our number 6. It's a stopgap. Paulinho is a stopgap for a year. It's a year. It feels Timo Werner-esque. It feels, you know, like those 6-month loan deals in January, doesn't it? You know, it's just not a move for me. Luiz is in talks with Fenerbahce. Please let him go there. Not a problem. Let's get Leao. I mean, this Leao obsession as well. He's going to cost 100+ million. Like, he also does not work hard defensively. That's the other thing you need to recognize. He is pretty lazy defensively. Which people will go, but he's a winger, will score goals and assists. It's like, yeah, but at the same time, you might have to defend every now and then. He just doesn't want to know about it. He's going to cost 100+ million. Spurs aren't doing that. They're not doing that. I know that might offend some people. I know they might get upset, but they're not going to do that. Every time that we get linked with those big money moves, like, you know, we're talking about like 80 million plus, I just laugh. What on God's green earth does anyone think? Why on earth on God's green earth do people think we'll do it? What evidence they have Spurs would do a move for 80, 90, 100 million? We would never do that. Like, when people talk about Wharton, it's like, we're not going to do that. Baleba, we're not going to do that. Leao, we're not going to do that. Sesko, we're not going to do that. Like, I need you to come down to the sort of 50 million pound mark, because Spurs want you to get excited about players for 40 to 60 million, because it's great. It saves them not having to go for those big money moves. They're not doing that. Okay. And who would I take for a Tessie? Probably, I don't know, maybe not. It's not to say he's a bad player before anyone jumps down my throat on that one. I don't know, potentially maybe not. I mean, Pape seems to be the only one really out of the pre-season so far that's sort of shown there might be a step that he's going to take this year. But it's Wickham, so we kind of have to, you know, pump the brakes a little bit. But, you know, Bergvall, still got Bergvall, and I'd rather Bergvall start. Mitoma for Son is by far the best option. Brighton rejected 90 million in January for Mitoma, who Son got 17 goal contributions in the Premier League last season. So let's just look at Premier League to Premier League. Mitoma is 28. And let's have a look at last season. So they rejected about 90 million for him. And last season, he had 14 goal contributions in 36 games. No, thank you. Leao doesn't track back. Spurs are in for huge losses on Maddison, Solanke, and Richarlison. What? I mean, Solanke's had one season. You know, let's chill. Richie, I'll probably give you, but they might be able to sell him for some money. And Maddison, like, I don't get this Spurs like fan base agenda against Maddison. Again, let's look at James Maddison's stats last year. Not even the year before, just last year alone. And people go, he can't play 90 minutes. No, Ange was trying to protect him. So he stayed fit because everyone else was getting injured. Last season, let's have a look. Here we go. View stats. 28, by the way. Spurs signing for 40 minus 10 on Winks. So it's about 30. Maddison in the Prem last season, 31 games, 16 assists, 16 goal contributions, 9 goals, 7 assists, which is less than 1 every 2 a game. 45 games played, 12 goals, 11 assists, 23 goal contributions, less than 1 every 2. I don't get it. He's a good player. Like, we are a much better team when Maddison plays. Like, much better. It's like night and day how much better Spurs are when Madders plays. So, no. Madders is going to be here for another couple of years, and I have no problems with that, by the way. No problems, because I think he's class. We need to help him. We need to give him some better quality surrounding him in the first team squad. That's what we do need to. F1 starts in 40 minutes. That'll take my mind off things. Spa. What's the weather in Spa like? Let's have a look. Oh, it might rain today. It might rain today. All right, BBC weather. Oh, it is going to rain. Come on. Oh, it's going to rain. Nico Ulkenberg. Go past Piastri. Madders is a baller. He's our best player. These deluded fans are lol. Mate, he's a proper player. I love Madders. He's so coy is unbelievable as well, by the way. But look, in terms of where I think Spurs go next, I think Spurs will have other moves sort of lined up. I would hope. By the way, how is João Felix going to Saudi for 48 million? How the hell is that possible? The guy is a flop and average at best. Milan didn't want to keep him in the Italian league. Like, I'm sorry. I am so seeing our other attackers worth more than him. I think Tell's probably worth more than him. I think Odegaard's probably worth similar. Johnson's worth more than him. I'm not having anyone tell me Johnson's not. I've seen production in the Premier League from Jono. I've not seen it from Felix at all. So, yeah, but Van Dam could get his leg up, get his leg up there and stuff. I'm on top form today. I've had 11 hours sleep. I'm actually energetic. Had 11 hours sleep last night. I had about 12 hours sleep the night before. I am firing on all cylinders. Normally in the evening, it's been a day of work and I'm knackered. So I am this today. Would I take Brahim Diaz? Good player. I like Brahim Diaz. It depends on price with Brahim, because my thinking, right, is like Spurs have money, right? Spurs have money. But if you think they have this, they actually have this. And you've got to be willing to work out how they'll use that figure, not that figure. And it's like, that's why I go, it depends on money. Even though it's not my money, I get that. It still depends on how they view their money. So, yeah. Curtis Jones is a pretty frequent starter now at Liverpool. So it won't be him. But look, we'll see on that side of things. I think... If I had to go, like, I want to get all of your thoughts on this. Please, by all means, in the comments, tell me the position that you think Spurs are adding to next. So I don't need a player. I don't need a fee or anything like that. I feel like the number 6 is where Spurs are going to add. I think it's going to be Paulinho. I think that's where they're going to go. So you, by all means, in the comments, just put in the position where you think Spurs are going to add. I know that some joker... I literally was about to say that, Steve. I know that some joker's going to mention the left-back position. Just beat Chelsea and Arsenal to Eze and Simmons. Might be nice, wouldn't it? Janice has had me there on left-back. Defensive mid or left wing. Ed is a hedge better. Or a fence sitter, you might say. I think it will be the 6. I think it's going to be the 6. I think it'll be Paulinho. Which, look, it's underwhelming. Massively underwhelming. It's a stopgap. It's a cheaper move. He's not here long term. So, there you go. Denzel Dumfries. Yeah, we have 2 right backs, though. And by the way that I've watched Destiny Doggy play left back, they're going to want someone in a similar profile to him. That's why Patrick Dorgu would have been a good player. It'll be a 6, probably Paulinho. Should be a left back, Eze. I hope they left Briss and Richie in London to find new clubs. The irony is Biss was probably the best player yesterday against Luton. That's the irony. Number 6, but we need a lot more. Mbappe. Not Mbappe, it's Mbappe. Look, we'll sort of see on that side of things. It's painful. It is painful. Yeah, I'd like Angelo Stiller, but he screams Bayern in a year's time. He just, you know what I mean? What happened first? Davies, Lee, Spurs, or Annie, let's go of Dorgu? Annie, let's go of Dorgu. Davies is going to be here. Well, in the year 2025, Davies is basically 30. He's going to get a letter from the monarchy when he turns 100, and he'll still be playing at Spurs. And by that point, I'm dead anyway, so who cares? But anyway. But look, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I'm going to go have a shower and get ready for the F1. It's going to be a good race. I'm looking forward to it. Please go enjoy the rest of your days, your afternoons, your mornings, evenings, wherever you are in the world. Please look after yourselves. Hopefully back tomorrow to talk more Spurs. But in the meantime, let's just pray. Let's just pray. Take care, everyone. Peace.